all women are different, but they are all women. This video is androcentric from a men's point of view and is presented as opinion, commentary, and debate. Expressing opinions is not violence. These are ideas to challenge, question, and argue in public, because classical liberalism relies on the First Amendment for its dialectic. If you are a feminist, then consider this. If patriarchy truly existed as claimed, feminism could not. And if all men are trash and women are equal to men, then what are we to conclude? Women will die for their children, men will die for their wives and children, and God chose to die for all mankind. Authority rolls up with responsibility. If this framing of facts offends you, click off to a cute cat video. Proceeding further will expose you to gamma bias and criticism directed at ideas, claims, institutions, not at any individual's virtue or dignity. Our method follows the 7 liberal arts: the trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric, and the quadrivium, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy, and the transcendentals, the good, true, and beautiful. If this framework is not for you, feel free to exit now. It's no disgrace. Women are wonderful. God bless America. Men are great. Feminismus delendus 8. Porn to purpose, virtue, semen retention, and spiritual armor. Written by Conrad Riker, available now, links in description. Porn to purpose. A field guide for men who still notice reality, the flake, the soy, and the savior. Dismantling the woke Babylon of cancelled plans, HR inquisitions, and social justice Pharisees to reclaim your testosterone, your tongue, and your truth. You know the exact sensation. You cleared your evening, structured your schedule around the prime directive of courtship, and at 6:47 p.m., precisely 13 minutes before you were scheduled to walk out the door, your phone vibrates. Sorry, just not feeling well tonight. Rain check? Let us dissect this pathetic modern ritual using the rigid scalpel of classical grammar. The word commitment derives from the Latin committeri, to entrust, to join, to bind one's word to the fabric of reality. What she just sent you is not a mere scheduling conflict. It is an ontological declaration of warfare against the logos. She has proven that her word possesses no stable essence, but is entirely tethered to the tyrannical whims of her transient emotional states. She didn't catch a sudden flu, she caught a better offer, or simply decided that extracting your submission via a shit test was more entertaining than actually showing up. You are not dealing with a partner, you're dealing with a Darwinian obstacle course wrapped in Lululemon. Why does she behave this way? Because the modern feminine imperative operates within a taxpayer-funded, gynocentric safety net that subsidizes her most degenerate behaviors. She, like the rest of our decaying society, has been raised in a hothouse of pure safetyism, an environment aggressively divorced from the brutal, beautiful reality of the wild. Consider the etymology. Security, from C plus cura, meaning free from care, through masculine strength and preparedness, is a cardinal virtue of civilization. The Marxist left has mutated this into safety, a padded cell where no feelings are hurt, no risks are taken, and no competence is required. We now live in a maternal state that actively pathologizes masculine excellence. Why do you think the media parades the absurd trope of the solo female traveler braving the Amazon? Her survival is entirely subsidized by the Pax Masculina, the invisible shield of male infrastructure, male law enforcement, and the male instinct to conquer the elements. Strip away the cell towers men built and the airplanes men engineered, and her solo trek collapses into tearful ruin within 12 hours. How does this tyranny of emotionalism maintain its grip on the Western mind? Through the systematic castration of the male tongue. If you point out any of this, if you simply speak the empirically verified data on family court bias, the astronomical male suicide rates post-divorce, or the sheer evolutionary biology of female hypergamy, you are immediately hit with the ultimate semantic stop sign. That's sexist. Let us deploy a formal Thomistic syllogism to eviscerate this Marxist trick. Major premise: to solve any problem, the problem must first be accurately described using objective language. Minor premise: accusations of sexism are deliberately designed to prevent the accurate description of reality by equating objective facts with subjective emotional offense. Conclusion: Therefore, language policing is an intentional malicious conspiracy to maintain a state of manufactured victimhood and prevent the restoration of civilization. They weaponize pathos to sever your logos. This ideological rot has metastasized so deeply that it has even breached the walls of the church, replacing the stern, hierarchical father of the Western canon with a permissive, inclusive, cosmic vending machine that dispenses cheap grace without demanding repentance. I am here to tell you that your anger at this inversion is not toxic. It is the rational, natural law response to having your birthright stolen by the high priests of cultural Marxism. But undirected rage is just hysteria with a deeper voice. You must transmute that rightful indignation into ironclad virtue. The modern world wants you drained, pacified, endlessly scrolling, and spilling your vital essence into a digital void while your society burns around you. Retaining your semen is not merely a biological discipline. It is the accumulation of spiritual capital, the raw fuel required to forge your armor and reclaim your telos. The moment she flakes, the moment the HR inquisitor silences you, the moment the false priest preaches the gospel of equity, that is the exact moment you must turn away, withdraw your energy, and build the fortress of your own sovereignty. We are going to tear down this modern Babylon, cast out the demons of pathological leftist rot, and rebuild the institutions of men from the bedrock of the absolute truth. The tactical frivolity of the flake, shit-tesks, broken vows, and the feminine contempt for logos. The line between commitment and contempt is drawn in the sands of time. This ancient sentiment echoes a truth lost in the modern cacophony of self-care and boundaries, a truth we must recover if we are to survive as men of substance. Time is not merely a sequential measure. It is the finite carrier wave of telos, the God-given hours allotted for the actualization of your potential. When a woman cancels a plan at the last minute, she is not merely inconveniencing you, she is attempting to abort your destiny. To understand the gravity of this offense, we must apply the rigorous blade of the trivium, starting with grammar. The word commitment descends from the Latin committere, to entrust, to join, to bind. It is a tethering of one's word to the iron of reality. Conversely, flakiness, that modern epidemic of evaporated plans and silenced phones, is not a mere scheduling error. It is an ontological failure. It is a rupture between word and action, proving the speaker possesses no stable essence, only the transient whims of passing emotional states. Yet, the genocentric matrix has reframed this breach of contract as prioritizing mental health, a solipsistic redefinition that guts the very concept of honor and replaces it with the worship of immediate comfort. To dismantle this linguistic sorcery, we must deploy the unyielding structure of formal logic. Consider the syllogism of disrespect. Major premise respect is demonstrated by valuing another's temporal resources as strictly equivalent to one's own. Minor premise, canceling a confirmed plan at the last minute without genuine cause, treats the cancelled upon party's time as valueless. Conclusion: therefore, last-minute cancellation is an act of profound disrespect, not a harmless change of plans. This logical structure leaves zero room for the emotional alibis women deploy to justify their chaos. You cannot argue with a syllogism, you can only rage against the truth it exposes. When she texts something came up, she is not communicating a tragedy, she is transmitting her assessment of your value. It is a calculated display of contempt disguised as a scheduling conflict. Naturally, when a man reacts to this ontological theft with the appropriate measure of righteous indignation, the gynocentric defense mechanisms activate. You are told you are overreacting. Here, we must apply the distinguo. We must separate malicious, uncontrolled rage from the rational, measured anger that is the natural response to a boundary violation. Anger is the sentinel emotion of the soul. It activates when a trespass occurs. When a woman calls your anger an overreaction, she is deploying a classic gaslighting tactic, a transfer of guilt from her failure, the broken vow, onto your reaction, the defense. It is a trap designed to make you question your own sanity for daring to hold her accountable to the standard of an adult. She wants you docile. She wants you compliant. She wants you apologizing for her betrayal. Reject this framing with the totality of your will. Your anger is not toxic masculinity, it is the logos within you refusing to be mocked. Why do they do this? The answer lies in the evolutionary biology of the reschedule. The modern woman cancels because she can. She operates within a gynocentric safety net, a digital harem of dating apps, a legion of simps ready to validate her, and a welfare state that has rendered the provider male obsolete. She cancels specifically to extract a reaction. It is a shit test, a Darwinian probe to determine whether you are a sovereign man of boundaries or a compliant, docile herbivore who will accept humiliation for a crumb of her attention. It is a dominance display masquerading as whimsy. She wants to see if you will gnash your teeth and beg for a reschedule, proving your subservience, or if you will walk away, proving your mastery. Her phone is a slot machine, and your desperation is the jackpot. Observe the tragic comedy of the beta response. The phone buzzes, "Hey, so sorry, super tired, can we do tomorrow?" The beta, enslaved by the scarcity mindset, types back with trembling fingers. "No worries, hope you feel better. Tomorrow at 7, he has just handed her the leash." He has communicated that his time is worthless and his word is meaningless as he eagerly agrees to break the contract simply to appease her fickleness. Contrast this with the Sigma adaptation. The Sigma receives the same text. He does not argue, he does not negotiate. He reads the message, understands the disrespect, and exercises the most powerful tool in the masculine arsenal, the delete button. Silence is the only appropriate response to contempt. This brings us to the practical application of the Stoic pivot. The answer to flakiness is not a screaming match. It is the cold, calculated withdrawal of energy. We call this the ghost protocol. When she flakes, you do not reschedule. You do not try again next week. You pivot that reserved energy back into your own ascension. If you had a reservation, take a book and eat alone with dignity. If you had an hour free, hit the gym and lift the heaviness of your anger into strength. Take that energy and pour it into your business, your studies, or your spiritual warfare. You transmute her disrespect into fuel for your purpose. You become the alchemist of your own salvation, refusing to let her chaos derail your cosmos. Time is the soil in which the seeds of virtue are planted. A man who cannot defend his time cannot defend his family. A man who tolerates broken vows from a woman will tolerate broken vows from the state, from his peers, and from himself. The flake is a test of your sovereignty. Pass it by refusing to participate in her frivolity. Guard your hours with the ferocity of a dragon guarding gold, for your hours are the gold of your life. Let the flakes fall where they may. You have a civilization to rebuild, a soul to save, and a purpose that demands the totality of your clock. This feminine delusion that reality negotiates with feelings does not confine itself to dating apps and dinner reservations. It metastasizes. It becomes a governing philosophy, a wholesale rejection of logos in favor of a solipsistic emotionalism that declares the universe itself a social construct amenable to complaint. The modern safety estate is the macrocosm of the flaking woman. Both demand that reality bend toward their comfort. Both treat natural consequence as a form of violence, and both would rather die or watch you die than admit the world requires hard men who do hard things. Consider what happens when this pathology meets something that genuinely does not care about your pronouns or your trauma narrative. Consider the grizzly, the crucible of the wild, fleeing the safetiest hothouse of the maternal state. Consider the fate of Timothy Treadwell, the man who lived among Alaskan grizzly bears for 13 summers, giving them cute names like Grizzly and Mr. Chocolate, insisting they were merely misunderstood gentle giants. He recorded hours of footage, narrating his emotional connection to apex predators, entirely convinced his feelings constituted a substitute for claws. In October 2003, a bear ate him. It also ate his girlfriend. The audio recording of the attack captures the precise moment when reality punctures the safetiest delusion. Treadwell did not die because nature is cruel. He died because he believed his emotional apparatus could override natural law. He was a civilian in a war zone, holding a bouquet instead of a rifle. His fate is a parable for our age. Genesis does not whisper its command, it thunders. Fill the earth and subdue it, have dominion. The left has hysterically mistranslated dominion as domination, a deliberate conflation designed to geld the masculine imperative. The Latin dominus means lord, master of a household, the paterfamilias who orders the chaos of the wild into a functioning estate. Dominion is stewardship through strength, not exploitation through greed. It is the lumberjack felling the tree to build the home, the engineer damming the river to irrigate the crops, the father standing between his family and the wolf pack. Dominion is the logos imposed upon chaos through calloused hands and disciplined will. When God placed Adam in the garden, he did not issue a waiver, he issued a vocation. The wild is not our enemy, it is our tutor. It provides the initiatic ordeal necessary to transition from boy to man. Without the genuine risk of death, there is no resurrection into genuine manhood. To untangle this mess, we must begin where reason always begins, with definitions. The word security descends from the Latin se, free from, and cura, care. To be secure is to have done your due diligence, built your walls, sharpened your blade, trained your body, and established a perimeter so solid you are now free from care. Security is the fortress built by competent men, the pax masculina, that allows civilization to flourish behind reliable walls. It is a masculine achievement, purchased with sweat and vigilance. Safety, by contrast, comes from salvus uninjured, intact. Historically a reasonable concept, but the modern safetyist state has mutated safety into a pathological demand for absolute insulation from risk, discomfort, and reality itself. Security says, I have built the wall strong enough to withstand the storm. Safety says, ban the storm and arrest the weatherman for causing emotional distress. Security is the father who teaches his son to box. Safety is the mother who demands the heavy bag be removed from the gym because it promotes violence. Security breeds fortitude. Safety breeds fragility. One builds civilizations, the other fills therapist offices. Every few months, the media apparatus resurrects the same tiresome trope. The brave, solo female traveler. You know the genre. A 26-year-old with a nose ring and a gender studies degree posts a sun-drenched selfie from a perilous mountainside in rural Pakistan, her Instagram caption reading like a manifesto against patriarchal fear. Who needs a man? She types, uploading via satellite to servers maintained by men, through fiber optic cables laid by men, using a smartphone engineered by men, while standing on a trail carved by men in a country where the rule of law, such as it is enforced exclusively by men with American-supplied weapons. Her entire existence in that moment is subsidized by an invisible shield of male competence so vast and so reliable, she has the luxury of forgetting it exists. She is not solo. She has an entourage of millions of dead men whose accumulated labor and sacrifice make her LARPing possible. Remove the pax masculina, the male infrastructure, the male law enforcement, the male instinct to protect women from the consequences of their own recklessness, and her solo trip collapses into a Hobbesian nightmare within 48 hours. The fantasy dissolves the moment the last policeman clocks out. A recent peer-reviewed analysis found that 80% of solo female travelers report feeling unsafe at least once during their trips, a statistic revealing not the danger of travel, but the comical disconnect between feminist rhetoric and biological reality. Meanwhile, men account for approximately 80% of homicide victims globally and 92% of workplace fatalities. Yet no one launches hashtag campaigns for us. We do not ask for campaigns. We simply accept risk as the price of building and defending the world. This brings us to the central syllogistic refutation of the safetyist state. Major premise: masculine virtue, specifically fortitude and competence, is developed only through confrontation with objective resistance, which is to say nature and reality. Minor premise: the modern safetyist state, gynocentric to its core, seeks to eliminate all resistance, all risk, and all discomfort, primarily to protect female feelings and the men who have surrendered to the feminine imperative. Conclusion: therefore, the safetyist state is inherently anti-virtuous and actively prevents the development of men. The logic is inexorable. If virtue requires resistance, and the state eliminates resistance, then the state eliminates virtue. This is not an accident of policy. It is the feature of a system designed to produce compliant drones. The maternal state does not want warriors, it wants consumers. It does not want fathers, it wants dependents. It does not want men who can build fire. It wants men who will sit in the dark and thank the government for the matches. Consider the urban soy boy, that tragic specimen of undifferentiated masculinity who haunts coffee shops and Reddit threads in equal measure. He cannot change a tire, navigate by the sun, build a fire without a chemical accelerant, or defend himself against a determined opponent. He is safe in the way a neutered house cat is safe, domesticated, harmless, and utterly dependent on a system that tolerates his existence precisely because he poses no threat. His inability to survive in the wild mirrors his inability to survive in the marketplace of ideas or the bedroom. He is sterile in body and mind, a product of the feminine imperative that conflates harmlessness with goodness. But harmlessness is not virtue. A stone is harmless. A corpse is harmless. Virtue requires the capacity for force, disciplined by reason and directed toward the good. The man who cannot destroy cannot truly protect. Nature confirms what the ideologues deny. The wolf that does not hunt starves. The eagle that avoids the storm crashes. The man who does not conquer atrophies. The left wails about toxic masculinity while typing their screeds on machines built by masculine ingenuity in buildings constructed by masculine labor, protected by a military that is 85% male. They scream toxic at the very engine that produces their comfortable existence. Masculine aggression does not destroy, masculine aggression constructs. The lumberjack fells the tree to build the home. The soldier fights to secure the peace. The entrepreneur risks capital to create employment. Aggression, rightly ordered by the logos, is the creative force of civilization. To demonize it is to saw off the branch upon which the entire human project rests. This is why I prescribe a specific remedy: 48 hours alone in a challenging environment with minimal gear, no cell service, no safety net, no podcasts, no porn, just you, the logos, and the merciless honesty of the wilderness. This is the forge where passivity is burned away and sovereignty is cast. I do not care if you start small, a state forest, a national park in the off-season. I care that you go. I care that you confront something that does not care about your feelings, your pronouns, or your trauma narrative. The mountain does not negotiate. The river does not accommodate. The cold does not empathize. Nature is the final tribunal against which all ideologies crash and dissolve. You will learn more about yourself in 2 days of genuine solitude than in 2 years of therapy. There is also a biological dimension to this return to the wild that the coomers and the consumerist will never understand. The practice of continence, semen retention, is not merely a sexual discipline. It is a vital force strategy. The ancient traditions knew what modern science confirms. The retained seed transmutes into physical and intellectual stamina. The man who spills his life force into a sock at 2 a.m. while staring at pixels of exploited women will lack the constitutional vigor to face the elements, let alone the challenges of building a life worth living. Your semen is not waste product. It is concentrated creative energy. Retain it, and it fuels the long march, the steep climb, the heavy lift. Squander it, and you surrender the very power that built every monument, every bridge, every civilization that ever stood against the dark. The data on fatherlessness annihilates the feminist narrative about men being optional. Approximately 85% of youths in prison come from fatherless homes. Over 70% of high school dropouts are from fatherless homes. Over 70% of teen suicides occur in fatherless households. These figures do not reflect male toxicity. They reveal paternal absence, which the maternal state has engineered through family courts that treat fathers as walking ATMs and visitors in their own children's lives. The system does not hate masculine aggression. It hates masculine authority because authority implies accountability, and accountability implies a standard, and a standard implies that some choices are better than others, and that is the one heresy the relativists cannot tolerate. So go into the wild. Take your weakness, your doubts, your pornographic habits, and your comfort addiction, and throw them against the anvil of reality. Let the wind strip away the comforting lies. Let the silence drown the noise of a culture that hates you for being what it needs. Return not as a boy seeking permission, but as a man who has faced the void and found himself equal to it. The world does not need another domesticated consumer. It needs men forged in the crucible, tempered by hardship and sharpened by truth. The wild is calling. Answer it. That engineer was not defeated by a superior argument. He was sacrificed on the altar of the feminine imperative, where subjective hysteria is worshipped as divine revelation while objective reality is burned as heresy. I will tell you exactly how we arrived at a decaying civilization where a woman's fragile emotional state outranks empirical mathematics. The enemy conquered our dictionaries before they conquered our institutions. This brings us to the foundational battlefield of the trivium, grammar. Before the cultural Marxists could install their HR inquisitions, they had to hijack our vocabulary, transforming words like sexism and mansplaining into semantic stop signs designed explicitly to sever the tongue of the competent man. If we are to survive this systemic castration of male competence, we must anatomize their linguistic fraud, smash their illogical frames, and forcefully reclaim the logos. The grammar of tyrants, weaponizing sexism to sever the tongue. Who controls the past controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past. Orwell wrote that as a warning, not a business plan. Yet here we stand in an empire of managed perception where the Ministry of Truth wears heels and works in human resources. I once watched a competent male engineer get dragged before a corporate tribunal, because that is what HR meetings are, tribunals of the unqualified judging the capable, for the crime of citing Bureau of Labor Statistics data during a diversity seminar. The data was accurate, the sources were impeccable, the reaction was hysterical. A female colleague declared she felt unsafe because numbers made her feel invalidated. Let that sentence detonate in your mind. Mathematics made her feel unsafe. And the corporation, that bastion of capitalist rationality, sided with the hysteria over the arithmetic. They always do. This is not a bug of the system, it is the operating system itself. Consider the etymology of the word sexism, coined in 1968 by Caroline Bird. It originally described actual discrimination, unequal pay for equal work, denied opportunities, legal barriers. Notice the precision, discrimination from Latin discriminare, to distinguish between real sexism involved actionable, verifiable, objective harm. A woman being told she cannot attend law school because she is a woman, that is sexism. A woman feeling uncomfortable because a man explained thermodynamics with too much confidence, that is life in a civilized society where competence speaks with authority. The left's grammatical coup was to stretch the definition from harm to hurt feelings, from legal barriers to emotional discomfort, from objective reality to subjective interpretation. They won by changing the dictionary before anyone noticed the edit. Here's the first syllogism of liberation, major premise. Problems can only be solved when they are accurately described. Minor premise. Language policing prevents the accurate description of reality by banning specific words, concepts, and data. Conclusion. Therefore, language policing is designed to prevent the solution of problems. This is not speculation. This is formal logic, and it is irrefutable. When you cannot say that men commit 90% of homicides, you cannot address male violence. When you cannot say that women initiate 70% of divorces, you cannot address family dissolution. When you cannot say that single motherhood correlates with every negative outcome for children from poverty to incarceration, you cannot save the children. The grammar of tyranny works by making the diagnosis illegal while the patient bleeds out on the table. Mansplaining deserves a special autopsy, for it is the most elegant weapon in the gynocentric arsenal. Let us define it precisely. A portmanteau of man and explaining, coined in 2008, following Rebecca Solnit's essay about a man who explained her own book to her. Fair enough, that man was a bore. But observe the metamorphosis. Within a decade, The word expanded from a man condescendingly explaining something to a woman who knows more about the topic to a man explaining anything to a woman ever with any degree of confidence. I have watched female colleagues deploy mansplaining in meetings when a male colleague presented quarterly earnings data. He was reading numbers from a screen. The numbers were not gendered. The spreadsheet did not have a penis. Yet the accusation of mansplaining was sufficient to halt the presentation, redirect the conversation to the woman's feelings, and cast the man into the role of aggressor. This is not an argument. It is a semantic stop sign, a rhetorical assassination, a grenade tossed into the gears of dialectic to prevent the machine of truth from functioning. The accusation of mansplaining is a confession of intellectual defeat. Consider the logic. If my argument were wrong, you would refute my argument. If my evidence were flawed, you would present better evidence. If my reasoning were fallacious, you would identify the fallacy, but you do none of these things. Instead, you attack my tone, my gender, and my audacity in speaking at all. This is ad hominem elevated to a civic religion. It is the death rattle of a mind that has lost the argument and knows it, reaching for the only weapon left, the demand that the victor be silenced by authority. Every time a woman says mansplaining, she is saying, I have no counter-argument, so I demand you stop making yours. Treat it as a white flag and proceed accordingly. Men are the primary targets of this silencing campaign for a simple evolutionary reason. Men are the problem solvers. This is not ideology, it is biology, anthropology, and recorded history. Male brains are wired for systemizing, identifying problems, analyzing components, proposing solutions. Baron Cohen's research at Cambridge confirms what every civilization until 1960 took for granted: the masculine cognitive profile trends toward understanding systems, the feminine toward understanding people. When a man sees a broken system, his instinct is to fix it. When he explains the fix, he is not condescending, he is fulfilling his biological imperative. To pathologize this instinct as toxic masculinity is to pathologize civilization itself. Who built the hospitals? Men. Who engineered the water treatment plants? Men. Who designed the electrical grids? Men. Who wrote the code running on every device reading these words? Overwhelmingly, men. The masculine drive to explain, to fix, to order chaos into functionality is the engine of human progress. And the modern gynocracy has declared this engine to be illegal. I call this the burden of competence, and it is the unacknowledged tragedy of our age. The more a man knows, the more he is dangerous. The more capable he is, the more he must be restrained. In a healthy civilization, competence is rewarded with status, resources, and mates. In our inverted gynocentric dystopia, competence is punished as a threat to the fragile egos of the mediocre. The diversity officer does not fear incompetence, she relies on it. Incompetent people do not question authority. Incompetent people do not challenge narratives. Incompetent people do not present data that contradicts the party line. The war on male speech is not accidental, it is structural. It is the systematic disabling of the only force capable of tearing down the lie, competent men speaking truth. The left's masterstroke has been the conflation of offense and harm. Let us distinguish these with exacting clarity. Harm from Old English herm, meaning injury, evil, grief, denotes objective damage to person or property, a punch, a theft, a vandalism. Offense, from Latin offensa, meaning a striking against, a stumbling block, denotes a subjective emotional reaction to perceived insult. Harm is measurable: a broken arm, a stolen wallet, a fire-gutted house. Offense is infinitely manipulable. I can be offended by your shirt, your syntax, your very existence. The Marxist feminist revolution has achieved something remarkable. It has made the infinitely manipulable legally equivalent to the measurable. Under modern hostile work environment doctrine, a woman's claim of feeling offended carries the same legal weight as a broken bone. Your hurt feelings are my legal liability. This is not justice. This is extortion dressed in judicial robes. Consider the implications through formal logic. Major premise: law must be objective to be just. Blind justice holds scales, not a mirror. Minor premise: offense is entirely subjective. It exists only in the mind of the offended. Conclusion: therefore, Any law criminalizing offense is fundamentally unjust, QED. Yet every major corporation, university, and government agency in the Western world now operates under codes that treat subjective offense as objective harm. This is not a coincidence. This is not progress. This is the deliberate replacement of logos with pathos, of reason with emotion, of the masculine principle of objective truth with the feminine principle of subjective feeling. When your feelings become legislation, my speech becomes violence, and the First Amendment becomes toilet paper in the HR restroom. The modern Human Resources Department is the Spanish Inquisition reborn, but without the theological rigor. The Inquisition at least had the decency to debate Aquinas before burning you. HR does not debate. HR does not entertain counter-arguments. HR operates entirely on pathos, emotion, and ad hominem, character assassination while dressed in the language of corporate professionalism. Consider the parallels. The Inquisition sought heretics who contradicted doctrine. HR seeks sexists and harassers who contradict narrative. The Inquisition used anonymous informants. HR uses anonymous complaints. The Inquisition extracted confessions through psychological pressure. HR extracts apologies through the threat of unemployment. The Inquisition punished the unrepentant. HR punishes anyone who questions the process. But the only difference is that the Inquisition believed in something beyond its own power. HR believes in nothing but liability management and the divine right of mediocrity to rule over excellence. I have seen good men destroyed by this machine. A friend of mine, a senior developer with 15 years of unblemished performance, was terminated because a female subordinate complained he was too direct in code reviews. Let me translate. He identified bugs in her code with insufficient emotional padding. He did not yell. He did not insult. He wrote comments like, "This function will cause a memory leak in production." See line 47. This was deemed creating a hostile environment. The woman in question had been hired 6 months prior through a diversity initiative and had already made 3 production-breaking errors that my friend had stayed late to fix. His competence was her shame. His willingness to name the problem was her indictment, so she destroyed him, and HR, those black-suited Vestal virgins of the corporate cult, cheerfully assisted. The message is clear. Male competence must be silenced if it offends female mediocrity. This is not equality, this is the worship of failure. What is to be done? The answer begins with a single word: courage. Not the courage of the battlefield, though that too has its place, but the courage of the tongue. The first virtue, according to Aristotle, is courage because it makes all other virtues possible. You cannot be just if you are afraid to name injustice. You cannot be temperate if you are terrified of the consequences of speaking truth. You cannot be prudent if your prudence is merely cowardice wearing a philosopher's mask. Speaking the truth, when it is socially costly, is the highest form of masculine worship. It is alignment with the logos, the word, the reason, the divine principle that orders chaos into cosmos. John 1:1 does not say in the beginning were the feelings. It says in the beginning was the word, speech. Logos, truth articulated at cost. The left understands this, which is why they attack grammar before logic. They redefine words before you can use them in arguments. Consider equality. Once it meant equal standing before God and law. Equalitas in Latin from aequus, level, just. Equal opportunity, equal rules, equal standards. This is the equality of the Declaration, self-evident truth that all men are created equal in dignity and rights, but the left has performed a linguistic bait and switch. Equality now means equity, sameness of outcome. This is not merely a different definition, it is a logical impossibility. In a universe of hierarchical differentiation, where some run faster, think clearer, work harder, equality of outcome can only be achieved by handicapping the excellent. The new equality is a guillotine, and competence is the neck. Consider equity itself. The word derives from Latin aequitas, meaning fairness, impartiality. But examine what equity means in practice. Unequal treatment to achieve equal outcomes. A gets a handicap, B gets a penalty, C gets a pass. This is not impartiality. This is the precise opposite of impartiality. It is partiality systematized prejudice wearing a lab coat. When you point this out, you are called sexist or racist. not because the accusation is true, but because the accusation prevents the argument from proceeding. The grammar of tyrants always works the same way: redefine the terms, ban the objections, silence the dissenters. So here is your rhetorical counterstrike. When accused of sexism, racism, or any other thought crime, deploy the Socratic method with ruthless precision. Ask for definitions. What exactly do you mean by sexist? Force them to commit. If they say believing one sex is superior to another, ask, where did I state or imply that? Force them to cite the specific claim. When they cannot, and they cannot because you were citing data, not asserting superiority, expose the maneuver. You have accused me of a belief I do not hold, based on evidence I did not present, to avoid engaging with evidence I did present. This is not argument, this is evasion. Say it calmly, say it publicly. Say it without apology. The accusatory framework collapses under examination. Never apologize, never backpedal, never qualify. The moment you say, "I'm sorry if anyone was offended," you have conceded the premise that offense is harm and their feelings are your responsibility. They are not. Your responsibility is truth, your obligation is accuracy. Your duty is to the logos that built this civilization and the men who died to defend it. Every apology is a brick in the wall of the new Babylon. Every retraction is a surrender. Every silenced man is a victory for the forces of darkness that feed on confusion, incompetence, and the systematic disabling of male competence. You have been sold a counterfeit faith, a gutted theology drained of its iron and soaked in sentimentality until it resembles nothing so much as a support group for the spiritually gelded. But the original, the real thing, does not ask for your tears, it demands your blood. Open the book to Ephesians 6 and read the inventory the Apostle Paul actually issues: belt, breastplate, shield, sword. He does not describe a cuddle circle, he describes a kill zone. Every implement God provides for spiritual warfare was forged for combat, engineered for a man who knows that peace is not the absence of conflict, but the order imposed upon chaos by superior, disciplined force. The Christian faith was never a fainting couch for the fragile. It was designed as a war room for the logos-bearing male. And the moment you grasp this, the entire feminized simulacrum of modern worship collapses like the cardboard stage prop it is, the church of the self-loathing, woke theology, and the castration of the logos. Consider the modern spectacle of the Sunday morning service, a cavernous beige room smelling faintly of stale coffee and capitulation, led by a grinning eunuch in a hipster cardigan who apologizes to the congregation for the inflexible demands of the living God. He offers you not the body of Christ, but a gluten-free cracker and a group therapy session. I look at this pathetic tableau and I do not see a church. I see a sounding board for the narcissism of the age. You sit there, a man with fire in his blood, and a mind capable of piercing the veil of reality, being told by a permissive mother figure that your natural drive to conquer, to build, to protect, and to discern is an embarrassment to the divine. It is time to state, without apology, the central metaphysical fact of our civilization. The armor of God is unabashedly, terrifyingly, and gloriously masculine. Read Ephesians 6. We are told to gird our waist with the belt of truth. What is truth but the logos, the objective, unyielding structure of reality itself? We are to don the breastplate of righteousness. What is righteousness but the cardinal virtue of justice, the exact proportionality of giving each man his due based on his merit and actions? We grasp the shield of faith and the helmet of salvation, defensive bulwarks forged in the fires of stoic endurance against the relentless siege of a degenerate world. And finally, we are handed the sword of the Spirit, which is the Word of God. A sword is not a surgical tool, it is an implement of offensive violence designed to pierce through deception and sever the head from the body of lies. These are the implements of war, dominion, and cosmic order. They require broad shoulders, a honed will, and a mind trained in the trivium. A church that rejects the masculine spirit has rejected the armor of God, choosing instead to stand naked, broken, and groveling before an enemy that desires its total annihilation. How did we fall from the glories of Christendom to this simpering weakness? We must deploy the grammar of our ancestors to diagnose the disease. The word heresy comes to us from the Greek heresis, which simply means choice. It is the act of selecting one singular truth to the exclusion of the whole. Integrated truth. The modern woke theology, this insidious social justice Christianity, is the exact definition of a heresy. It selects the verse, God is love, while taking a razor blade to the text declaring God is justice, God is order, and God is a consuming fire. It reduces the cosmic sovereign of the universe to a celestial golden retriever who just wants you to be nice and share your toys. As the great minds of the Western canon have warned, a heresy is a partial truth run mad, and madness is exactly what we see when churches prioritize emotional inclusion over objective reality. This theological rot is nothing but a systematic feminization of the divine. Look at the historical decay of the mainline denominations. They have scrubbed the word father from their hymns to appease the perpetually offended, installing female pastors whose primary qualification is a complete ignorance of ancient languages and natural law. They have engineered a shift from a theology of bloody sacrifice, the ultimate masculine act of laying down one's life to protect the innocent, to a theology of boundless inclusion, the ultimate feminine vice of prioritizing comfort and cohesion over virtue and truth. This is not progressive enlightenment, it is a regressive collapse into the earth-worshipping fertility cults of the Canaanites, the Ashtoreth poles of the ancient world, where the only sin is exclusivity and the only virtue is blind, sodden acceptance. To understand why this fails, we must look to the psychological architecture of reality, specifically the paradox of the strong father. Natural law dictates that freedom is not the absence of boundaries. Freedom is the presence of the right boundaries. Only a strict, strong father can grant true freedom by defining the edges of the playing field, allowing the child to grow in competence and mastery. A permissive parent creates a terrified slave to his own passions. The modern woke church, desperate to be liked, has become the ultimate permissive mother. In its refusal to discipline, judge, or exclude evil, it has produced congregants utterly enslaved to digital addictions, manufactured victimhood, and horrifying sexual confusion. They preach a God who tolerates everything and stands for nothing, a God who is not worth dying for because he demands nothing worth living for. From a Thomistic perspective, the metaphysical structure of salvation is deeply, beautifully patriarchal. The church is the bride, feminine, receptive, life-giving. Christ is the bridegroom, masculine, active, the sower of the seed of the logos. The submission of the bride to the bridegroom is not oppression. It is the cosmic order of reality itself, the feminine receiving the formative power of the masculine to create civilization. Woke theology attempts to invert this ontological reality, placing the community, the emotional, pathos-driven flock, in authority over the truth, the rational, objective shepherd. This is the precise rebellion of Lucifer, non serviam, I will not serve. It is an attempt to dethrone the logos and replace it with the chaotic pathos of the mob. Do not be deceived by their pseudo-intellectual framing. When the social justice Pharisee stands in the pulpit and preaches white guilt and male privilege instead of sin and repentance, he is not preaching Christianity. He is peddling cultural Marxism dressed in a clerical collar. He does this because Marxism is the path of least resistance. It blames external systems for internal damnation. True Christianity demands that you pick up your cross, conquer your shadow, and achieve mastery over your own sin through rigorous, agonizing effort. Woke Christianity demands you point your finger at the nearest cisgendered male, declare yourself a victim, and demand the state fix your miserable life. It is a religion tailor-made for cowards who lack the stomach for the bloody work of actual virtue. The most pathetic manifestation of this cowardice is the absurd assertion that Jesus was a socialist. Let us destroy this lie with the cold steel of a formal syllogism. Major premise, socialism is the state, under threat of violence and incarceration, forcibly expropriating the property of the citizen to redistribute it to a voter base. Minor premise, Christianity is the voluntary, cheerful giving of one's own property to aid the poor, motivated by love and divine command. Conclusion, therefore, conflating voluntary charity with state coercion is a category error of such astronomical proportions that it can only be sustained by active malice or profound, willful stupidity. The God of the Bible commands you to work with your own hands to be a provider, a builder of household economies. He does not command you to vote for a bureaucrat to rob your neighbor at gunpoint. Behold the ultimate syllogism of this false religion. Major premise: the Christian God is logos, order, reason, truth, and natural hierarchy, Father, Son, Holy Ghost. Minor premise: Marxism and its woke progeny are anti-logos, revolution, relativism, deconstruction, and enforced egalitarianism. Conclusion: therefore, synthesizing Christianity and Marxism is a metaphysical impossibility. You cannot blend light and darkness. You cannot synthesize a house of stone with a house of sand. The woke church does not worship the God of Abraham. It serves a different God entirely, a demon of chaos and envy masquerading as compassion. Therefore, the duty is clear, and it requires the primary masculine virtue: courage. If your church flies the rainbow flag of the managerial state, or if it preaches the critical theories of cultural Marxism, it is no longer a church. It is a non-governmental organization with stained glass windows. Do not argue with them. You do not debate a disease. You excise it. Walk out. Do not try to reform the irredeemably corrupt. Assert your agency, gather your brothers, and build new institutions grounded in the unvarnished, hard truth of the Western canon. Build cigar and Bible studies. Form men's groups based on the apprenticeship mastery ladder. Establish house churches where the Logos is spoken without apology. Reclaim the faith, put on the armor, and draw your blade. You've read this far because something in you recognized the truth before your mind caught up. You felt it in your chest when she canceled that date without apology, when the pastor preached reconciliation instead of justice, when the silence after your words told you that speaking fact had become a sin. That recognition is not anger, though they will name it anger. It is the Logos waking up inside you, shaking off the narcotic fog of a culture that profits from your paralysis. You have been told your competence is oppression, your restraint is toxicity, your silence is consent. Now you know better. Now the grammar is fixed, the logic is sound, and the rhetoric is yours to wield. Consider what you have escaped. The average American man will spend 37 hours per year buffering his language to avoid HR inquisitions. Family courts strip fathers of children at a rate that would make Herod blush. 80% of custody arrangements leave the father a weekend guest in his own child's life. The gynocentric apparatus has rigged the game so thoroughly that marriage has become a lottery where the prize is your continued involvement in your own home, and the penalty is alimony, alienation, and a suicide rate among divorced men that spikes to nearly 40 per 100,000. You were not born to beg. The wild awaits you. Not the curated trails with trailhead markers and latte stands, but the country that demands competence or extracts a toll. The cabin you build with your own hands, the fire you spark without matches. A silence broken only by wind through pines, where your word is your bond because there is no committee to complain to and no grievance form to fill out. This is where men are made, not in sensitivity seminars, not in the inbox of a woman who does not value your time, not in the pews of a church that worships inclusion over truth. Go forth with this knowledge. Do not argue with those committed to misunderstanding you. Do not apologize for excellence. Do not explain your boundaries to people who profit from their violation. Build the new institutions, men's groups, house churches, trade guilds, shooting clubs, reading circles. Protect your seed, your speech, and your sovereignty as if civilization depends on it, because it does. Every great culture was built by men who refused to kneel, and every fallen one collapsed when its men forgot how to stand. You remember now that is enough. That is everything. And now the sponsored book introduction: Porn to Purpose, Virtue, Semen Retention, and Spiritual Armor. Men are dying, not from bullets or disease, but from a slow rot that starts in the soul and spreads through the bloodstream. I know because I was once a corpse in motion, a shell of a man glued to screens, numbed by pixels, drowning in shame after every hit of dopamine. My wake-up call came when I found my grandfather's WWII journal. He stormed beaches for freedom. I couldn't conquer a browser tab. That humiliation birthed this book. This isn't self-help. It's a field manual for spiritual survival in an age where porn is the new opium. Feminism is state religion, and men apologize for existing. If you're content being a pet in the matriarchy's zoo, stop reading now. Go binge Netflix. This book will only piss you off. But if you're part of the 23% of men who still feel the primal itch to build, protect, and lead, if you suspect your lust could be liquefied into legacy, this is your draft notice. I spent a decade reverse engineering the male soul, tested every protocol, 147-day semen retention streaks, ice baths at 4 a.m., fasting until I hallucinated ancestors. The result? A system that resurrects dead testosterone, hacks reality via quantum biology, and turns sexual energy into sovereign power. You'll learn why wasting semen makes you dumber. Peer-reviewed studies prove it. How porn shrinks your brain's command centers, and why toxic masculinity is a Marxist psyop to neuter Christ-like kings. We'll dissect the TMU framework to reprogram your mind's OS, deploy Spartan sleep rituals, and weaponize fasting to outwork simps. Weak men won't survive what's coming. The next generation needs fathers, not influencers. Your seed isn't just DNA. It's a cryptographic ledger of ancestral wisdom. Squander it, and you erase your bloodline's future. Retain it, and you activate what monks call ojas, the biochemical rocket fuel for genius. Final warning, this book will offend feminists, atheists, and men who think vulnerability means crying in Zoom meetings. Good. Truth isn't a safe space. Your enemies don't fear your feelings, they fear your discipline. Turn the page only if you're ready to transmute shame into armor. The war for masculinity starts in your skull and your pants. Porn to Purpose, Virtue, Semen Retention, and Spiritual Armor. Written by Conrad Riker. Buy now, links in description.